last always gets the front row. Well, good morning everyone. It's great to see such a good turnout. My name's Ronnie Hurst. I'm the Project Director for the Major Stadium project with the Department of Sport and Recreation. Just a couple of formalities before we get into it. Mobile phones, always like when people say can you turn them off? No one does. If you just put them discreet or silent or something like that, might make it easier. Toilets, if you need them, ladies are at the end of this corridor, gentlemen horseshoe round to the other side. If we have an emergency, we'll be congregate and we'll go out the door over there. Now this morning we're going to podcast this, so this presentation and the podcast will be put on the website probably tomorrow, so you can double check it. You don't particularly need to take detailed notes at this point in time. And if you can hold your questions to the end, that might, if there are any questions, then happy to take them at the end of the presentation. Well, good morning. As I said, I'm the Project Director. Ronnie Hurst is my name. I work with the Department of Sport and Recreation. There's a couple of colleagues, a few colleagues in the room I'd like to introduce you to. First of all, Brett Treby. Brett is the Manager of Policy and Research and is the contact for this particular tender. Steve Humphrey, next to Brett, is the Principal Project Manager with the Department of Sport and Recreation. And thirdly, but by no means least, Diane Hudson, who's the Senior Procurement Manager, head kicker for this project. So I'll invite Diane at the end to make a few comments before we go to questions and answers. So for the Department of Sport and Recreation particularly, but I would suggest to you the state, this is a fairly exciting project. One false start in 2007, 2008. Under the former government, the election came along and the project was put in abeyance for 2 years. At the turn of the year, the Premier had a range of consultations with a wide variety of stakeholders, and we ended up with an announcement on the 28th of June this year that Buzz would be the site for the new Major Stadium project, and we will kick off full steam ahead. The presentation this morning will touch on those areas there, and I'll just touch on each one. It shouldn't take longer than 20 minutes. So as I've said, the Premier made the announcement on the 28th of June. We are going to be building a stadium with a capacity of 60,000 seats with the potential to rise to 70,000 based on demand. The current cost that was announced by the Premier was 700 million in today's dollars, and that was based on the work of the previous task force that was commissioned by the Department of Sport and Recreation. And then on the 22nd of September of this year, the Premier announced a further allocation, or not a further allocation, a formal allocation of 100 million into a future fund for the development of the stadium. This is a busy slide, but I'll take the time to go through it so you are aware of potentially what you're getting involved with. This is the project governance. Starting on the right-hand side, this is the Department of Sport and Recreation and our project team, of which there are 4 people. I'm the Project Director. I report to Ron Alexander, the Director General. And in turn, we report through to the Minister of Sport, Cabinet and the Premier. On the other side of the ledger, we have the strategic projects based in the Department of Treasury, working on the project. Any project over $100 million in WA, it becomes a strategic project managed by the Office of Strategic Projects. They have the Strategic Projects Project Director, who is John Tondit. Executive Director of Strategic Projects, Richard Mann, who reports through to Tim Marney as the Under-Treasurer, onto the Treasurer, and again through to ERC and Cabinet. Forming the spine of the project governance, we have a range of reference and working groups, of which we have a stadium working group, there's a master planning group, transport, environment, a range of different working groups, who report through to the Perth Stadium Project Control Group, the PCG. We then move on up to the Steering Committee, which is the main governance group for the project, who of course will provide advice to the Expenditure Review Committee, Cabinet, Premier and Government. The Premier also announced as part of his decision that he would appoint a Parliamentary Secretary, and that Parliamentary Secretary is John McGrath, the member for South Perth. In terms of the timelines for the project, we have allocated a 2-year planning phase, and the first component of that will be the project definition phase, which this is the tender for. It's only for the project definition phase. Following a government decision based on where we will be locating the stadium on the peninsula, what the design, what the cost, what the quality will be like in the middle of next year, we'll then go into the documentation and tendering that will take us to approximately the middle to the end of 2013, depending on what procurement method the state decides to proceed with. Following that decision, we will then enter the construction phase. It's approximately a 4-year project, and we are anticipating to be ready to go by the start of the 2018 AFL season. Many of you will know the Burswood site, but I might just take a minute to run through some of the key components and stakeholders. We have Perth Racing, Belmont Raceway. We've had a number of consultations to date with Perth Racing. They have a large development that they are planning to upgrade the racetrack, increase the residential accommodation as well as entertainment, retail, commercial developments on the site. Polly Farmer Freeway, and again we need to look at the upgrade of transport to the location. State Tennis Centre, Burswood Dome, Casino, Mirvac development here, State Water Sports Centre, then we have the 18-hole golf course with a clubhouse in approximately the middle of the site. The historic use of Burswood Peninsula is quite interesting, and I'll give you the 1-minute overview. Basically, it was marshland originally, and for those of us a bit older, which doesn't include myself, there was a canal dug by the boatmen approximately through here, and there is a plaque around this area signifying that. That was to save the boatmen when they were coming up or down the river doing this. They dragged the boats across there. That was subsequently filled in. The peninsula then became a tip site. We have over 110 different geotechnical reports that we're currently analysing on the condition of the soil, and it contains asbestos, night soil, it's super loaded. Basically, it's got everything that you probably wouldn't want on a development site. Nonetheless, it just presents a challenge. So that's the site in its totality. We're currently analysing the best location of the stadium. You may be aware from the press reports that the stadium is going to go somewhere on the site, and there is an intention to have a footbridge into East Perth. And the likelihood, although there's a lot more detailed work that needs to be done, is going to be in around this kind of proximity here. So some of the other advisors we currently and consultants we have on board is a master planning consultant. We're currently in the process of appointing a master planner, and the master planner is made up of the 3 areas you see there: a district structure plan, the sports precinct, and the stadium development itself. Now the master planning and district structure plan component of this project will be run by strategic projects. The sports precinct and the design of the stadium will be managed by sport and recreation, but the expectation from the specification that you will no doubt read is that the consultant will work across all these components as part of the coordination of this project. We are well in the process in terms of confirming the architect, and that we would hope that announcement would be made early December, but the architect will be undertaking a review of the trends and issues on the design, operation and commercialisation of the stadium. We have a lot of work already from the previous task force report in 2007, so obviously we do not want to reinvent the wheel, but we need any architect to review that work. But stadiums have moved on in the last 5 years, and there's been quite a lot of development, so we want to have a look at the trends both nationally and internationally on stadium design. So that will be the first component of their task. We obviously need to look at the opportunities and constraints that the Burswood Peninsula presents. And finally, we do have our existing functional brief, but based on the previous two tasks, we need to update that functional brief. And this site, as opposed to Subiaco, presents more opportunities around the precinct for the stadium itself. We're currently working on a specification which we hope to have out at the start of December for the financial and business modelling. Again, large part of work done through the previous task force, and the first task we will be asking this consultant to do is to review that work and do some financial modelling in terms of the stadium and the business plan itself. We obviously want to look at the financial model for the stadium, the precinct and the whole master planning area in its own right. And as I say, we look to have that specification out at the start of December. So the purpose we're here today is in terms of the stakeholder engagement, and obviously we're very keen to ensure we get good buy-in on the project and I guess create the appropriate expectations. You just need to look at the West Australian on any given day, and there are considerable expectations on this project, and that's something that we need to I guess buy into, shape and influence where possible, and I guess that's part of the engagement strategy we will be looking for the consultant to develop. Part of that is ensuring we have clarity on and consistency on the messages that we provide as part of the process, and working across the range of state agencies and advisors that we are employing. We obviously want the successful tenderer to working with the community, the general public, the stakeholders, to generate ideas and probably just as importantly come up with solutions to those ideas. That's just a quick overview, but obviously the specification has a full scope of services that you'll be aware of. So we'll be looking for advice on some of the trends and issues that are arising throughout the project. We want to facilitate development on communication plans and materials that would support those plans. And we need, as I've said, the successful company to be liaising across a range of state agencies so that we're getting consistent messages coming out. And more importantly, we're feeding in the stakeholder feedback to the various agencies so that there's no conflict as the project develops. Yep. In terms of we've categorised our stakeholders in terms of primary, secondary and tertiary, and again we have identified the list of stakeholders in the document, and we would also want the consultant to be participating in the risks, constraints and opportunities workshops that we will be holding as it relates to the master planning and the architectural work on the stadium itself. So just to conclude, 29th of November is the closing date. We want you to answer all the questions and, just as importantly, adhere to the page limits, and then you'll have to complete the schedule as required. At this point I'd like to invite Di Hudson, Senior Project Manager, to give I guess an overview for what she is looking for as part of this process, which I think you might find useful. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Hello everybody. With my procurement manager hat on, what I just want to remind you all is this request is being called under the Goods and Services General Conditions of Contract. If you are not familiar with that documentation, follow the link, download it and please read it and be familiar with it. As Ronnie pointed out, we have a very strict deadline of the 29th of November. It is a strict closing time of 2:30. I don't even think death is an excuse for being late at the tender's office. So please, in all seriousness, make sure that you do deliver your documents in time. You have a variety of methods you can deliver your documentation. You can deliver by hand to the tender's office at Osborne Park, at where government procurement is, at Optima Centre. You can mail them in. Please be aware that mailed submissions need to be at the locked bag the day before the closing date, which will be the 28th in this case, or you can submit electronically online through Tenders WA. Be aware of the page limits that we have set. You have 3 qualitative criteria we would like you to assess. They are weighted. Be aware of the weightings. That gives an indication of what we as the project team consider to be of most importance. We have very clearly established the areas where we're going to evaluate your submission on. So please make sure when we say answer the question, a lot of you sort of went, but it's amazing how many times we get submissions where the question has not been answered. So please read what we've asked you to respond to that. This is not an opportunity to give us your marketing information, your glossy brochures or anything like that. We will not read them. Please just answer the question, adhere to the page limits. Also too, please do not use web links. We have issues around probity. Web links are not a static thing. One evaluation panel member may access them one day, they may change by the time another panel member accesses them. So please don't supply us information that requires us to look at web links either. Give us the information in the format you're providing in the document that we have asked you to submit. Any questions regarding that? Nope. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. I'd just like to reinforce what Diane said in terms of the marketing information. We will not read it. So you are wasting paper, do not submit it. We did the same thing with the architectural tender and they listened to us and it just makes it so much easier. We're assessing you on your responses, not how good your marketing information is. So that concludes the formalities. As we're podcasting it, if you have a question, I'm going to repeat the question so that anybody picking this up on the internet will, but by all means, some nice easy questions would be good. If there are any. While you're thinking about that, we will be in the room for the next 15-20 minutes if you would like to informally have a discussion with us. That's comfortable with that as well.
Just please be aware that if there is anything that is discussed that it's of relevance to everybody, that will be put up on an addendum on Tenders WA, and there will also be information provided on the website.
When are you looking at making a decision on that?
We closed 29th of November. I would be very surprised if it's pre-Christmas. In fact, it wouldn't be pre-Christmas. I'd suggest to you it'd be mid-January. Thank you for breaking the ice. Christine.
Ronnie, if this contract is awarded to an organisation that also provides other services, for example, master planning, would that preclude that organisation from tendering for that piece of work?
Nope. As long as we're very clear on what this tender particularly is around. I will not extend the torture. Thank you for attending and participating. It's good to see such a good turnout. So once again, thank you for your participation, and myself, Diane, Steve and Brett will be around if you have any particular questions you'd like to ask us. So look forward to receiving your responses. Thank you.